Welcome to the Energizing India podcast. We are a program that focuses on the e-mobility sector in India, and our endeavor is to give a voice to the industry sector through conversations with key protagonists, industry leaders, decision makers, to understand what India needs to do in terms of decisions, policy movements, both from government as well as industry, for faster adoption of electric mobility in India. So far, we've talked to protagonists from the grid, electricity manufacturers, OEMs, car manufacturers, scooter manufacturers, even battery manufacturers. But today we're doing something incredibly different because we go to a sector which is going to have the biggest impact in India, and that is public transportation with buses. We had Reji Pillai here, who is the chairman or CEO of India's Smart Grid Forum, and we asked him what needs to happen in India for faster adoption, and he said, forget about cars, rickshaws, two-wheelers, but make it a policy that says all public transportation inside cities in India will be electric in 3 years. In many ways, this is what your company Causis is going to be able to do. Today, we talk to a startup called Causis that manufactures electric buses. It is a British company that was founded on German technology, and founded only in 2021, but in that time has already 1,000 orders for buses in India, has delivered 250 electric buses in Kazakhstan and Nepal, and is also going to be doing all of the bus transportation for the Qatar Football World Cup. Today we speak to the CEO and director of Causis, Ravi Panga. Ravi, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Only one thing which the COVID pandemic had taught us, that when people say about that this country has achieved 40% of electrification in cars and all that, I keep on reminding them that it's no more country level, it's the global level. So unless we do in most of the countries, especially countries like India and all, we are not doing justice to the EV adoption. That's why Causis as a group has taken that initiative, that we will be in the mass mobility, because that makes more impact in that. And as we all know that every bus replaces 14 to 16 cars, and cars are normally single occupant or a double occupant type of a phenomenon, whereas a bus is what is always crowded. And historically, when I was growing up in my 3 years of industry in automobile sector, the definition of a developed country was when people will have their own cars.
I was just going to say that.
And in today's era, I keep on reminding my team members first, because you have to do first all the change in the in-house first, belief in this, that the day people use mass public transport system, parking their cars or not even buying their cars, is what I call it as a developed country or a developed economy. So our definitions have changed over a period of time. And thank you for inviting to this broadcast, this very important channel and communication.
Thank you, Ravi. So I'm interested, your career adventure has been quite interesting. 30 years almost in the mobility sector. You were with Ashok Leyland. You were head of retail sales and marketing international for Ashok Leyland, managed over $200 million in sales a year. From there on, you were in IIM Ahmedabad, and then even in Harvard Business School doing the GMP program there. How did someone with a stellar career in the automotive sector suddenly decide to be an entrepreneur? How has that journey been? Because being an entrepreneur means incredible sacrifices, personal sacrifices, to be able to achieve your goals.
Yeah, I think that couple of statements what you made has actually given me a flashback of what's been going through for the last 3 decades. So I passed out in 1992, to just give you a background in mechanical engineering, and my first job was with a good Indian automobile company, South Indian based automobile company. Definitely I'll share the name of the company as we progress. So I worked for that organization for almost up to 2020. So it's a 28-year of long journey with one organization. So most of the people used to make a fun out of it, saying that, are you not getting any other job, or a company is not... I said, for me, even though by name it's a single company, but I worked in 8 different companies within the company. So that's the greatness of the company. So let me first appreciate Ashok Leyland for being what I am. I mean, I should not forget the journey what I've traveled with them for 28 years. Wonderful company, a graduate engineering trainee, to a field person, to a product head, to a process head, to a head of India business for buses for 3 years to global retail head for 3 years. So they've given me all the flavors of it, right? I have seen all the countries. I have seen in real operations. There is a very important part a mobility plays in any economic development of a country. Then when we were growing in the last 10 years, precisely I can say that from 2011 onwards, there was this something in me which was bothering me, what is that next big things going to happen in India and how I should be a part of it. I always keep on telling two things about India. India is an elephant. When it moves, it really moves. So when we went to the investors, they were telling us, yeah, there is a big potential in India, but government, GCC models, it taking time, how many vehicles are actually on road. And really when we did our analysis, it was less than 1,000 numbers, electric buses whole in the country. And the journey started in 2014 to 2020, 6 years, 1,000 less than vehicle. Whereas one city in China has 17,000 electric buses.
Shenzhen, yeah.
So how to scale up this? So that's where the thought process started. There where the journey of Causis started. And one more interesting thing before we again get into subject is, India is our 6th country actually. We started with Kazakhstan because of the European partner which we had done. They were already doing a small portion of business with them. We brought the scale to that business. They got the Qatar order because on the technical superiority of a product, we fought with the best OEMs in the world. So that gave us confidence. Then we started Indian operations in June 2021 in the name of Causis e-mobility. From here, we started operating Nepal, Mauritius, and few other countries. So India was our 6th country. But as I always keep on telling, India is elephant. When it moves, it really moves. They blessed a startup company like us with almost like 1,000 vehicle order. That's the journey. People of good OEMs getting even 2,000, 3,000 vehicle order is a part of their business. But for a startup, that's what I keep on telling people. India is the country to be in. And for me, to summary, after white revolution, after software revolution, is the EV adoption revolution which India is going to take out the world. Whether it's a charging site, whether it's a green energy, or whether it's a buses, or with the delivery trucks on the EV side, India is the market to be in. And we are very proud as a Causis to be here.
Exciting times, in fact, you're absolutely right. So you're now in Kazakhstan, in Nepal, Mauritius, British incorporated German technology. You have in India Switch from Ashok Leyland that's making electric buses. Tata is making electric buses. You've got JBM and also Pinnacle.
Electra.
And I forget Electra, yes, but the GBT, so somehow they have a blind spot in my mind, but yes, you're right. You have Electra, so. Now, but you're in fact a global company. So how do you position yourself? Who do you consider your competition?
So for us, competition is definitely ICE plays, internal combustion engine plays. So in that format, companies like Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland, Volvos, they are definitely our competitors. But when it comes to e-mobility players, whether it's a Switch or whether it's a Tata's e-mobility wing or whether Electra or all, they are competitors still to the tender stage. Once you win a tender, it's all about collaboration. Mostly, I have a personal thing. It's nothing to do with Causis, but personal, that the market is so huge that everybody should get an opportunity. So today, the leveling ground has to be that it's not OEMs versus startups, established OEMs versus startup. If you don't give an opportunity to startup, then how the adoption process will improve. So in that context, I don't think the big OEMs here are any competitors. For me, they are collaborators. And end of the day, I'm very honest with you that I've been 3 decades in the Indian automobile industry. We are same, like we exchange notes, end of the day, we know everything about it. The support of all the big players and the startup companies, especially the companies in the charging infrastructure side, is very important. The green energy is important, green finance is important. So it's not about competition, it's about how the facilities in terms of charging infrastructure and the green energy and the green fundings available in the market, that's going to dictate the adoption. So I don't think we are worried about any competition. Nobody should get worried by competition. It's more availability of this thing that will get the fast adoption.
Absolutely. But your business model is slightly different as well, because not only do you make the bus, but you also operate it post-tender. So you're actually earning your money per kilometer for passengers that are transported around cities, which I expect not everybody else is doing, because you're an OEM or you're an operator, and the two trains that don't work, they're in parallel universes almost. How do you bridge that gap? Because it's two completely different competences, and the competence beyond that is also getting your money, because you're dealing with local city councils, and in India that's incredibly difficult, because then you have a whole army of people that are just sitting at the desk trying to get the check. So how do you develop that competence as a startup, because your exposure is huge in some ways?
So have you asked this question a year back, probably my answer would not have been such framed answer, but today, because this is a question that's been asked right from the board members internally to all the various stakeholders in the industry. It's a very prominent question. As we wanted to start Causis as a technology company, to be honest, we wanted to do that. And we said we will provide all the electrical technologies by German technology, and ITMS a big part of it, so that we are solution providers for that. We are not. Then finally we realized that with this, funding will not be available. For a funding, you need to be having a product with a physical product, product that creates revenue. Then we started scouting the part of it. Then we finally zeroed in. We were lucky, to be honest, as a startup company. We got a good German product, which has been there in the industry for a decade. And when we had product and investors' money, then we started that the big challenge is charging infrastructure. Now let me take a minute to make you understand. It took 70 years, and you operated, for example, a petrol or a diesel car. If tomorrow all the three things like IPCL, IOC and BPCL and Reliance stops their fuel dispensing system, what do you do with your car? It's a useless piece of showcase in your home. And anyway, the car utilization is 5% in India. Private car utilization. But in Indian system, the charging infrastructure is a part of OEM, while in diesel and all it's not. So we said we'll invest into the charging infrastructure. But that's again a big industry in itself. So we started collaborating with the people with approach. So we are OEMs, we are charging manufacturers, we are funding people, we are also green energy people, because otherwise you will be polluting from zero emission tailgate to well-to-wheel type of conversations which happen in the industry. Then to have a faster adoption, the Indian government said we will go by a GCC model. Now GCC is a very big phenomenon in India, when we have to understand that the public transport system in India is always a loss-making venture. We have to understand that part of the story. And it's always funded by government or by agency to bridge that gap. What in good word we call it viability gap funding. And I will define you that piece is more important. So in India, the GCC model, you have to operate the buses. When you have to operate the buses, you need to recruit drivers. So you are almost like an operator, and you have to maintain your buses. So to give you a perspective of six-box theory, we are OEMs, we are charging people, we are funders like any finance company, we are green energy people, we are operators like any operators who operate the buses like BEST, and we are maintenance people also. So 6 companies when get amalgamation into one is Causis.
Okay.
It's very difficult for OEMs of current ICE to have this even as a concept, because they are used to selling vehicles and servicing warranties. It's a very different than maintaining the buses. That's why it gave us very big, because we don't have any past legacies, anything. It's a fresh mindset, fresh thinking, but it's a big business model. Now, it was very important for us to have right people to operate 6 parts of the businesses. So when we got this contract of BEST, and in the future, whatever contracts we'll get, we normally pick up the people from that section of the organizations. The people who know BEST will operate BEST in the name of Causis, so that you get the real part of service. So in this whole value chain, we are not worried about our business model. That's why we are opening up our business model, because all the 6 segments you have to perfect. I'm an industry man, so I know a lot of operators. I know the OEM side. I don't know the charging side, but it's a wonderful opportunity for us that Indian charging infrastructure is developing as a business in its own.
Yes, at the same time.
And so we don't have to look to the government also, because the IOCs and the Reliance petrol pumps are those charging people, and it's developing. So our business model we are going to open up. Anybody who wants to collaborate with us in any tenders, they can collaborate with us. Going forward, what we are looking is 3 things. A right mix of energy, which should be done by a third party. And a lot of people are investing in the hydrogen and in the fuel cell and the battery side. The second is a charging infrastructure. When I say charging infrastructure, there are 2 sides, within the city and on the highways. So I think in last couple of years, within city, charging infrastructure is getting developed. But you will not find on the highways. So still people have to depend on IC range of vehicles to go to a city-to-city transportation. I think but things will improve. The third and the most important point is the funding. It's a green fund that's required, because costly funding will only bring back again taxation to that. Now finally coming to the point which I left in between. Typically if you operate on a per kilometer basis, which was your question, currently the system in the government mass mobility, I will just take an example without quoting the customer, just to give you the flavor. They operate per kilometer at a cost of 110 rupees to 120 rupees. And the discovery prices in the EV ecosystem which has happened are somewhere between 50 to 60 to 70, right? Now, their cost has come down drastically. It is the third party that are doing it. So this is point number 1. Point number 2, the revenues now are above this, what the discovery prices have happened. So they don't have to look out to the government or anybody for a viability gap funding. So in one stroke, the whole viability gap funding, loss-making STUs have got converted into now a viable proportion. So I think India EV adoption story is a perfect amalgamation of the government and the private operators working to a common objective of giving environmental friendly, same cost without viability gap funding, mass mobility solution to the public. I think it's a wonderful experiment country has done per se. More than the government, I'll appreciate my collaborator partners who have taken now GCC model. So you will see that the reluctant ICE players have also now got down into GCC model. And I'm very appreciative of Tata Motors, especially I'm taking a name of a company whom I respect and admire, even though I was working for Leyland for so many years, is they have taken one of the world's biggest EV tender of CESL of 3,500 to 5,500 buses, which shows that they have understood the model and they see that this is the way forward in the EV ecosystem. And I think in that environment, the startup companies are also looking at the business model, the OEMs are looking at the business model. So I think it's a good period for India for the faster adoption of EV.
Absolutely. So you've talked a lot about charging infrastructure, and one of the problems we've had in India with charging infrastructure is, what do you invest in? And that is, do you invest in slow or fast? If you're doing fast, you want to do hyper fast or fast? Do you want 60 and 120 kilowatt or 180 to 240? But most importantly, what kind of charging protocol? Because we never took a position as an industry or as policy whether we are going to be aligned to Europe with the CCS2 charging protocol, or whether we're going to allow for the dog's breakfast that we have today with everything going on. And so, for example, the Pune city buses, the Electra ones run on the Chinese standard, GBT. The JBM buses are made only on CCS. Tata started with GBT, moved to CCS. I'm not quite sure what Ashok Leyland's doing, but I'm sure Switch would be CCS as well. What is your view on this situation? Because it doesn't allow for the most efficient use of money if you're going to have buses running on GBT but all the cars are running on CCS, because now you do not have common infrastructure that can be absolutely put to use to give you a return on investment, to make sure that it becomes ubiquitous around the country, so you know you can get a charge anywhere, because wherever there's a bus there's also a car that's able to charge. First up, what's your view on GBT versus CCS? And secondly, what is Causis doing? Are you going down the GBT route or the CCS route?
So I think it's a very important one, but I will take in the lighter version. So roti, kapda aur makan is what the basic safety net of all human beings. Talk about roti, I need bread. So first of all, if I use that balance to this, I need charging infrastructure. So I don't care. I mean, it's not my personal opinion, it's the industry opinion I'm talking. I don't care as long as I have a bread or so-called charging infrastructure. Then that's level 2 comes, which is called what type of bread. It's a garlic bread or type of scenarios. So what type of charging? So I think now India has come to a stage where it's no more bread. It's the type of bread, right? Whether it's a brown bread or now we have become conscious on that. So I think we have reached that stage now. So the new infrastructures that are going to get developed, I think my judgment is it will move to go to CCS version from a totally professional approach. End of the day, it's the TCO, total cost of ownership is one. Another thing is the technology superiority. It's been well established that CCS 1 or 2 or CHAdeMO type of technologies will move on it. So my take on that as a personal take, and then I'll come to Causis' take on it, is CCS will rule the roast in these category. Causis is also believing in CCS part of the technology. But few of the pieces initially, and that's the point which I want to drive, is compelling us to go. When we went to GBT in the start is because of the tendering system where the lowest price wins the tender. So till we move to TFL model, which is Transport for London model, I will explain very short, not in this, but we'll take a separate chapter for that to explain it. First, let's qualify the people for the tendering system. And between those qualified people, let's have a price competitiveness. Otherwise, if you leave it to only price, and it's a startup company a culture which we want to develop. So one way we want to develop startup companies. Other way we said, so if you have to match up, we have to go for Transport for London model, where first qualitative tendering is done, and you identify 4-5 parties based on your scale of operations and all. And then you go for a commercial bidding as a second leg. I think that approach is needed. Then you'll get some quality. Today, service is never given a priority. The cost in the tendering system is good.
So I want to probe you on this, Ravi, because it runs very close to our heart, because we make charges and we say we're born global because our charges are not rewarded in India by the quality that we built into it, and so we want to sell to the world, not India. Why? Because in India, it's a 0-1 game. L1 wins. And what happens when you got L1 is China, because China makes in one day what India makes in a year, so the economies of scale are there. Ease of business index is much easier in China. Their taxation system, their tax terrorists, their pollution control terrorists, the whole system of how India regulates itself is incredibly expensive. Real estate is expensive. They have an incredible advantage of India. So if you have a 0-1 game, it'll always be China, and yet our system is geared to help China win. And then we turn around and we go, why is China dominating our economy? We need to delever from China, but it's systemic. It's in everything the government does. In your opinion, as you've been in this industry a long time, you're an entrepreneur dealing with it. Why are we this way, and what do we need to do to change that? I know you said TFL, but how do we get to TFL?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a journey. I mean, that is the journey, which is always a difficult journey. But I can tell you more about Causis, how we are tackling this issue, because we are operating now in 5-6 countries. We said we are not going to dilute any of our technology part of it. So on technology, I can assure you that no dilution will happen when it comes to safety, when it comes to the motors or efficiency material and all that. How we are differentiating is on the quality of interior trims is one approach, but interior trims or seats all can make a variation of 10 to 12%. That's it, not more than that in any bus industry. So we have built a business model which is spread out to different revenue streams. and I'm very transparent in that revenue stream. Europe pays us good margins. Some of the CIS countries pays us good margins. India is always going to be a competitive market till it stabilizes. But one phenomenal change I have seen in my last 5 to 10 years in India, people have started recognizing paying more for the quality, for the services what they are demanding. Let me take one example with you, and I'm very proud of that example. That is Volvo. So it's the Volvo that brought the intra-city transportation part of it. And they said, oh, you're traveling with
a Volvo. That's what it was.
The
Volvo bus.
Volvo bus.
But it was private industry that did it. It wasn't government. It was,
exactly.
Still today, no state transport corporation has Volvo.
Yeah. So I'm coming to that. So it's a wonderful part of it. So there is a share of now two things. Purely initial tendering processes used to only talk about the vehicle revenue, not the non-vehicle revenue sharing system. For example, let me appreciate the tenders what we got. We also got advertisement rights for our 700 buses.
So additional revenue streams that allow you to
allow us to leverage it, which was not before in the tendering process. Now, the big challenge that is coming for us also is on the manpower cost, because we have to pay more to our drivers, but the government used to pay larger amount because of the social net and the structures into this. So my take on this particular part is it is evolving, and we will evolve to a stage where no startup or no OEM can afford this type of a competitive market approach. So introductory price era is over as far as I am concerned. So when we came to India, I'll be very honest, at these price levels, it was very competitive to convince our board and management. But entry points are always allowed. But going forward, we will have pressures on the discovery prices, what's that happen. Slowly and surely, as we gain experiences in the industry, because no industry player today has more than 2 to 3 years of experience. And now, people will demand electric bus mass mobility transportation, and when people will start demanding that I will travel in eco-friendly public transport system, I think the prices, the realizations will go up. So the so-called loss-making era will move to a break-even era, to a slightly profit-making era.
So a capitalist era.
There is one more thing I want to add on. If anybody wants to make money in this industry, then this is not the right industry. This is an industry with little money, but more getting impact on the type of environmental impact and all. So it's a fine balance between what we are giving back to the society, giving back to Mother Earth. So in Causis, we have a department called ESG, culture, which is phenomenally different from the normal traditional companies. And we give in that what type of city, what type of country we are leaving back to our grandchildren is a philosophy on which we are working. So we are a small catalyst in that journey. We are proud of that journey. We are for margins, but we are champagne socialist.
Nice.
So with that, I will conclude that answer that we want to be a champagne socialist, which is predominantly two different eras, but we'll combine both into a less profit making, but industry will survive in that profit.
So Ravi, you're very well described, and thank you for that. So you're an OEM that's also an operator, and you're doing many things downstream, many additional revenue streams. But in a sense, the heart is the OEM, the making of the bus. You're going to make the bus in India, in Andhra Pradesh, I think, or maybe in Pune. Or to start with in Pune and then Andhra Pradesh. The ecosystem isn't mature yet. Whether it's motors, drives, batteries, CMS systems, BMS systems. A lot of that has to come from China. Where are you at in this? How much of what you're doing is imported? And where do you see the value chain developing to support companies such as yourself so that you can be completely Atmanirbhar and everything is available here?
I think let's compliment the government for their long-term vision. Atmanirbhar is a long-term vision, and it will have stages of attaining that Atmanirbhar. I mean, this is
absolutely yes.
That's the necessity. So the first agenda for Causis internally, and I'm very open to share with you, is minus batteries. We wanted to be 100% either Indian or European to start with. We had that inbuilt design principles. That's why we have taken Eurobus. We own the design, and we do contract manufacturing even, where we dictate on the suppliers everything. So is the battery minus? I think all should attempt 100% dependency on European for qualities and Indian versions. Most of the automobile European companies are today has outlets in India. And let's take a few examples on the axle side or motors side. So whatever you are developing, the best motors in Europe or in the first world countries are available in India. Now coming to battery, which is a very important subject. Battery can be divided into 4 sections as far as I am concerned. One is the BMS. I think we have reached a stage where we are going to have our own BMS as a collaborative partners. Or the 3 other stages of a battery is cell, packaging and moduling of that. I think cell is one.
It's going to take a while.
Take a while. I mean, I will not mince words in mine. But very good news is, even though a cell is dominated by China, but I think now they also realized that they will not going to have a dominance on that subject for a long. But as an industry guy, I can tell that as long as it's lithium NMC or LFP type of a technologies, China is going to lead the battery packs. But as we move to solid state, or as we move to sodium based or aluminum metals, so many solid state batteries, chemistries. So I think the people have realized that if you want to push the envelope on the EV side, I think batteries is the showstopper. It's controlled by one particular set of people. So it's very important for us to understand that the chemistry, battery chemistries is going to dictate the industry. There are certain applications where hydrogen fuel cells will get into. So it's a very exciting phases we are in. But I think let's give respect to China for one thing. They have taken that risk 10 to 15 years back. They're very focused EV-driven policies where they are subsidized OEMs to support it. Their unique tendering process where they're segmented chassis, operations and batteries into 3 different tenders within. So I think they're innovators in that space, so we must respect them for that. But they cannot be even stopping on that. They will have to invest on the new battery technology. So for me, as far as Causis is concerned, minus batteries will Indianize, or it'll be more non-Chinese thing, it's a.
Excellent answer, and I took from that you are in fact agnostic to the technology so long as you're in control of the value chain. Yep. If the battery chemistry moves to sodium, if there's solid state, if there's hydrogen fuel cell, you're quite open to move very quickly down the so long as you're in control of the value chain, and that's refreshing. There's a lot of companies who are normally wedded to a technology, and it takes a very long time to move. So the last question I'd like to ask you, Ravi, and it's a question we ask everybody who comes on our podcast. And I apologize for the very frivolous nature of this question, but it usually gives a very pointed answer, and that's why we ask it. And the question is this. Ravi, if you had the opportunity to be the Prime Minister of India for one day, just one day, and you could make any decision you wanted for faster adoption of electric vehicle mobility in India, what would that decision be?
Wow. So first of all, thank you for offering such an opportunity. But I want to take this answer very seriously. I mean, it's very important. First of all, Prime Minister of a country, it's a constitutional position, won by mandate by the people, and I really marvel at that position that chair holds for the country. It's a very important part of it. As an EV, and if I get that opportunity, I will not take that opportunity because that's a bigger persona and a bigger thing. But as an advisor to that chair, I mean, I'll more talk from that perspective, and I'm capable to give advisor to that chair, not the chair, because chair is too big even to discuss at our levels. So 3 things I will be more focusing as advisor to Honorable Prime Minister's chair is charging infrastructure. I think that is what we'll have to invest a lot on government side. I would like to see a lot of supply side, demand side incentives flowing into the charging arena. And that's one area where I would be personally recommending this. Second is the focus on the green energy. We are still known worldwide in terms of energy mix as a coal burner. 54% of energy is coming to that. 9,000 gigawatt of energy is required, and renewable energies are in few hundreds. So I think energy is one energy mix, and energy department like you have NHAI, National Highway Authority, like that. We must have a green energy department and a ministry of it to do that as advisory. The third and the most important part is, as you see that we used to have a railway budget. Now in the new government, we have mixed up the railway and everything into one budget. But I think for some part of next 5-year plans or Niti Aayog philosophies, we should have some green fund exclusively available for adoption of the green part of it.
So green transport budget almost.
Yeah, green budget, department, industry, ministry and all. So as an advisor, I will give 3 areas. One is charging infrastructure area, energy mix area, and a green fund. That's the thing I think I look forward to it.
Excellent. That's a great answer. In fact, every year we have a summit of the entire industry protagonists and decision makers here in Pune, and we pose the question what needs to happen in the following year that we need to address as an industry for faster adoption. And last year when we had the summit in November, end of November, the key theme that came out was 2022 is about finance. It's about ensuring that the available finance is unrestricted, not just the startups, but also for the banking industry to understand fleet financing, so that taxi fleets, bus fleets can be financed, because they were struggling to get their heads around lithium, battery life, second life, and things like that. So beautiful answer, Ravi. It's been an incredible conversation. You're doing some amazing things, changing the face of public transportation in India, and we're very excited for you, excited for what you're doing to energize India as well, and look forward to the success you're going to have, to celebrating those and to having you back on the program very soon.
Again, thank you very much, and let me appreciate you, this concept, what you have brought it to bring the industry people into the same platform. It gives an ample opportunity for us to exchange our ideas. But more than that, people like you, what you're doing is a big contribution to the society per se, in general. I also interact a lot with the media person in this capacity as a chair, what I'm holding now for Causis. I keep on telling them that what we should do is the awareness, encourage people, commuters to use more of a green public transport. Phenomenal change I've seen in the Indian mentality, mindset in the last couple of years. Even I'm seeing small kids not accepting a green plastic bags in the shopping one, and it's a phenomenal mindset that is changed. So last my take on this is MIST, which I keep on telling it, M-I-S-T. By word it means something, but for me it's a mindset. M, it's innovation, it should be sustainable, and we'll have to transform. So I think these are 4 different eras and words, but ultimately we'll have to build a mindset which is sustainable, which is innovative, and which is also transforming the thought processes of the younger generation. You are doing a good job in that MIST category. We are also part of a MIST, and I look forward for this interaction with the industry. And wherever you feel that Causis should be a part of such non-profit initiatives, we are there for you. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I look forward for the interview.
Thank you very much, Ravi.
Right.
Pleasure.